What's up, men? Welcome to the Male Cartel podcast. Let's get started.
Do you think men are important? Like for what?
Men are not meant to be dominant. Men are meant to be submissive.
Life's too short to exercise. I'm just gonna be honest.
It's okay to be fat.
Dispelling toxic masculinity and really redefining what it means to be a man. Men can cry. So it's okay to be weak. It's okay to be weak.
I'm telling you right now, not everybody wants to see you win.
You seem to be more woman than you are man. You don't have any manly qualities.
You give them this message that it's okay to be a man.
It's not okay, it's necessary. How are we going to do without men? You look around the city here, you see all these buildings go up, these men, they're doing impossible things.
It ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
Be a dangerous man. Being dangerous is not being a threat. They're two different things. You can't be a good man if you're not a dangerous man. You say one disrespectful thing to my wife, I am not only willing, but I'm able to inflict great bodily damage.
I'm going to do everything in my power to become a victor and not a victim. I can't explain it, but you better feel me. Winners win and losers lose. I can't explain it any better than that. I don't know how it happens, but winners win. And if you create a culture of losing, if you keep being a victim, if you keep letting losing happen to you, if you keep letting people do you and treat you any kind of way, it's going to become a culture. What's the matter with you? There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow.
Here's your host, Nick and Shane.
All right, yeah, we back. Male Cartel, what is crack-a-lackin'?
Episode 28.
Number dose 8.
Yeah, I just had a flashback because producer Carell was getting the recording going for the video. And last week, or last episode, if people were listening, they would have heard you go, "We good?" And what they don't know is, because the video's not up yet, by the time this airs, it'll be up. I've just been real busy. I was crawling across the floor because Carell was waving his phone saying there was an issue, and I had to go check on the recorder. So that's what that was about. I just had a flashback.
Well, you pulled out, though, your Rambo and World War II skills doing the army crawl.
I've yet to see it. It may be on video. I don't know.
If it is, it's probably your booty in the air over here. like Jaws. Dun, 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 dun.
You don't even have to look through the little squiggly lines on the TV. You get a full show.
Full show. What better? That's awesome. You can hear some good stuff and see a show.
Yeah. Why don't you tell everybody what's going on with you? Because you were just telling us you got
crazy, man,
washed out of your house.
Yeah, it's been wild, dude. I went to Maine, come back from Augusta, Maine, did some things for a week.
The worst Augusta.
Spoke at a deal on Saturday before the Saturday came, that Thursday, which was a week ago. Got a pipe bust in the foundation. It's called a slab leak because our house is on a slab. Your house is probably not on a slab. You got a big, nice house. It's probably on a foundation with like bricks and mortar and all this. They just pour concrete.
Your house is probably worth more than mine, though.
Nah,
you live in that Evans,
but you got water in your name.
I live in the ghetto of Columbia County.
You live in yours got like a waterfall name to it. So when there's water, you know it.
And foliage.
Oh yeah, that's true. You do have foliage.
I got ivy and I got.
You got it all, man.
I don't want to give away all
where you live because people come stalk
stalkers,
you, bro. They be outside the paparazzi. So we lived, as my kids would say, like Little House on the Prairie. Primitive. And I said, no, this is not primitive. This is actually better than how Daddy was raised. So we're not hard up as much as y'all think. So instead of going to a hotel early, we toughed it out. And people have asked, why have we toughed it out for 5 days? Because I want to build character for my kids.
Yeah.
Simply, that's really the only thing, because they got it all made and all that stuff. So we moved into a hotel, and so we bounced around from one hotel, and now we're another hotel. And
so now you got a maid. Wow.
Yeah, we have a maid. Listen,
to the east side.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna eat some pretzels in bed, bro. I'm gonna eat some Funyuns in bed and just mess it up and let the maid, fold that bed up for me. So we
does a family have to like go out so that the maid can come in and clean, or do they just kind of prop their feet up and let her vacuum underneath them?
You know,
how's that work?
if they,
I've never lived that kind of lifestyle, so I don't know.
So I think they prop their feet up.
They prop their feet up,
and they just
Excuse
vacuum.
me, you missed a spot.
Yeah, that's exactly what they do. You know, they. I'm not there, obviously, and so we're staying in Grovetown now till Friday. And
so you came to my neck of the woods.
Yeah, man. Like I'm on this side. This is like the ghetto side. So like I went from one side of the street to the other side of the street. However, the place that we're staying is not a lush hotel. It just gives us more room. I was nervous because my adjuster's been a pain in the neck. I'm not going to mention my insurance. I know I'm not the name of the adjuster. It's a girl. It's a girl. We're gonna call her though, Karen. And so Karen.
We are open to some insurance sponsors, though.
That we are. My insurance has been, just for the record, have been fantastic.
It's just
we had an issue on the roof. We've had and even on the phone on that Thursday, they said, "Hey, get a plumber. Do this. Do this. Do this." So we did exactly what we thought. The adjuster gave us a ring to my wife on Friday, a whole 24 hours later, and said, "Oh yeah, this is not covered. That's not covered." Opposite of what our insurance said. They said you have a policy of X number of dollars. And so my wife was in tears. I wound up calling her on Friday, finally got a hold of her, and went through the conversation. What is the game plan? I didn't know what a mitigation was. I thought that was a political term. And so I was like, listen, I'm not Trump or Harris, and so I'm not even involved in
We've got to take this to mitigation.
and so they ServPro been great. They came in and like helped demo the walls and cut out stuff, and we went ahead and they brought in we have 18 fans. It literally, bro, the 3 fans we did have was very loud regardless, but they brought in 12 additional fans or 14. Literally, we could never have a conversation. It sounds like when one time I was at the airport and we had to come off that plane on the outside and how loud it was. And we had to do that with a side, buckled on the side of the airplane, and we had to come out on that little floating thing before. And it was so loud.
Floating thing you had to slide down?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because they had an engine that blew. And so, that's a different story. Yeah. And so I ended up, it was so loud. That's exactly how it was. So, man, in short, it's so loud there. I said, I can't do this. We can't wash clothes. We can't do anything. We've at least got to, get some sense of normalcy, because for 5 days we have not been normal. And so I saved the money. And then so we moved into the hotel this week. I have it booked till Friday. And she comes out tomorrow. Karen does. And so I'm probably going to use a personal day tomorrow, just because I know I'll be back and forth. Need to be around her, and so we'll meet and see what the deal is. And so just as this morning, I got to pay my plumber because he came in and fixed the job. Had to do all kinds of junk to it, which they told me to go do, bro. Like they said, you need to get your plumber in.
Yeah.
So I did that. They said wasn't going to pay for the cost of the repair, which I get. I honestly get that. Okay, well, yeah, the damage from it and getting to it, they should replace, because they're gonna have to dig everything up anyways.
Right.
So it's all gonna be demoed. So it's just okay, sure. And so, but we need to get that leak fixed. We need to get a big old pipe. I mean, it's busted. And so it's told me today that I couldn't. So $3,000 I'm gonna pay, which I knew I would pay them before I get money.
Yeah.
So take out of savings, and so we back to zero. And then next thing I know, they go and said it's not covered, which is nah. So
what are they saying is not covered?
They said that none of the whole plumber in general is not covered. So I had my plumber break it down how it's supposed to be. And so they need to cover, it's about $2,400. So I'll cover $600-ish. They could cover $2,400. And so it's all broken out. And dude, here's the thing. You know me, I'm pretty smart with this stuff. At least I think I'm smart. I could be completely wrong. The next episode, I could be venting how I'm not smart. But right now, one thing I do know about being in situations, and all the years I've been a professional human, for 47 years, that I have everything in writing.
Yeah.
Everything is, I was on the phone with her. I said, hey, there seems to be a conflicting in communication between the insurance company and you as the adjuster. And she was super nice with me on the phone. And I said, I've taken notes. I would like for you to send me, if you could, it really helped me out a lot, if you can text or email me what we just discussed.
Yeah.
What you've communicated to me. Because I asked what was the next steps. And so, which she did. And then every step before I made a decision, I sent her a message. And to let her know this is it. Does she have any thought? And I get nothing. I haven't talked to her in 2 whole days. And finally she talked to me today. So, and I've called, left a message, and then, so she's avoiding.
Yep.
So, but everything, we've kept every receipt, we've kept every bit of communication, we've kept every email from our insurance company in for her. And so it's like, they don't have a leg to stand on, really. And so it's just a formality in some retrospect. So, but I was talking to my wife this morning, and I said, this is what I don't understand. If that is true, if they want to fight me for it, I'm definitely, me, I'm by principle, so we're going to fight over $2,400. But you mean to tell me you told me to go get the plumber because it was got to get that fixed because I don't want to destroy the rest of the house because we have a lot of money insured on the house. So that would save the insurance company money on the house from property damage and all that. So, but because we got to get that fixed. So we did that accordingly. Now you're saying you don't want to pay. So it's like, we should have just left. If that was the case, we should have just let the water run more for at least 24 hours at 3.5 gallons a minute. Then for $2,400 or for $3,000, we could have gotten our entire house remodeled.
Yeah.
Perfect. Brand spanking new.
New furniture.
New everything.
Yep.
So over $3,000 would cost us to get our house completely renovated. Dude, I'm down with that.
Yep.
So you mean to tell me what you're communicating to me is, so the next time our pipe bust, because we have this issue in the pipe called, it's when the pipes are fragile, is the plumber did a test and said, this is it. And he says, and it could be a fragile in another pipe, just to let you know. So you mean to tell me that if it bursts again, I'm just going to chill with it because I've got to pay the plumber? Well, I'm cool with that.
Sounds like Karen doesn't know what she's talking about. Your best tool is the actual policy, and of course, what the insurance company told you. The adjuster is just the one that's supposed to determine the amount of damage, but that's not always the case either. Adjusters on vehicles will look at a vehicle and say, okay, it's going to be like Nikki's car.
Yeah.
The adjuster said, I forget what it was. It was like, a certain amount, but I think that was with the body shop, and it was more. And then the insurance came back and said, okay, we're, giving you $2,000 or $3,000 less. And the body shop said they'll do that, but then once the vehicle is repaired, they'll just send them the invoice ahead, because once you get into things, you find other damage and other things that need to be repaired that you can't see on the surface.
Uh-huh.
The whole point of having insurance is to make you whole.
Yeah.
This is a good lesson for men who don't know this. I had a man who's much older than me when I when my truck was totaled. When I was telling him this, he's like, well, I just learned something. I didn't know that. He said, I didn't know you could negotiate with the insurance company. I said, absolutely. And so that's what I did with my truck. I went and showed them. I said, they sent me 3 comparisons, and they were trying to lowball me. Well, the point was, you're supposed to be able to go within a certain mileage of your home and purchase that vehicle at the price they're quoting.
Yeah.
Well, I went and looked online. You couldn't find anything in that price range. So I was like, where are you getting this? So I took my own time and went and priced out 4 vehicles within driving distance, within the distance that I drove to buy my truck up to Atlanta. And I found as equipped as possible, and I created my own document. And I sent this to them, and I said, 1, you need to be able to show me where you're getting your quotes from. 2, here's where I'm getting my quotes from. And they matched the highest one that was most closely equipped to mine. The only thing that hurt me was I had the price for that one had just dropped $1,000. The dealership, after I had sent it to them, within a few days dropped the price by $1,000. So I got what it showed online. Plus, they gave me a percentage for my transmission that I had and torque converter that I had just done. So the whole point of insurance is to make you whole. So you never settle for what they initially tell you. You do what you're doing, keep receipts, even if you've got to get a note from the plumber. But I mean, they even advertise this stuff like, some certain insurance companies. I know yours, I won't say their name, but others who advertise on TV like State Farm and some of them, they advertise like, oh, we had a flood, and they show that they make the person whole again. That's the whole point of insurance.
Well,
if not, why have insurance?
Well, the person next door to us, 2 doors down, when her hot water heater in the attic blew and messed up their house, they told her, hey, you got to be out the house for like 2 months.
Yeah.
We're going to pull out a pod, put it in, set in your, and then they started the process mitigation. They gave her, since she was at the house for like 2 months, they gave her an allowance every day for a hotel stay, all that, and then she just kind of worked that system, with her, stay with her in-laws, with her parents, and then paid. They made an invoice of like a bill and all this other stuff. I'm not even I want my junk taken care of.
Yeah.
Man, I told him on the phone, I said, I'm all about character and integrity, as I told her on the phone. And my wife was like talking to me about it, why'd you say all that? I said, because I'm like super full of grace, and I'm letting them know, like, I hired the plumber that I hired because he's character and integrity. He does a good job. I can trust him. And I told her, I'm a person of character and integrity. I don't exploit things, and I don't want to be exploited. And so that when I'm so nice and full of grace, and we're going to talk and have a conversation and be very kind, that's my posture. But I will be extremely firm in, and our conversation. So I'd rather go, this looks like there's some integrity issues in this point, because she'd already heard it from me about character and integrity. So I'm just going to use that chip back against it. This doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
This sounds like if this was your child in your situation, you would feel bad about the situation. This doesn't feel right. There's nothing that feels right, because our insurance company said one thing and you're telling me something completely different.
And the adjuster doesn't determine what your policy covers.
That's right.
So she just may be ignorant. She may be thinking other type policies.
Well, she sent me the number today, what it covers, and I was like, yeah, that's what the insurance told us. And so, anywho, about you, man?
Well, I just got back last week. I was gone all week for our Hope Church pastors' annual retreat.
Man, you go all these retreats. It must be nice having all that money to go to. You go to the Bahamas. You do the cruises.
Yeah.
Well,
that
I went
was
on a John boat.
That was personal.
When you went on the cruise, I actually jumped in a John boat, and I was like paddling. I felt like I was on a cruise, and I brought me some Little Debbie's too, so that I would feel like I was Nick Carnes.
Well, I mean, you were in Clearwater Beach, so
it wasn't very clear though. It wasn't very
Freddy's. So.
It wasn't very clear. So
yeah, I went to the flea market of the Caribbean at the Bahamas. So 2 different things. This is kind of like a mixture. We call it a retreat. I actually told them, I said, because some of the pastors were talking about just kind of being tired from ministry, and they were just kind of like, hey, could we do something like this where it's just rest? Of course, enjoying one another's company. And I said, well, maybe if we did that and we split it up, maybe one should be called a workshop and the other like an actual retreat. This is kind of a mixture. We did trim some of it, but there's some workshop in there. We, as pastors, because we bring on new pastors from time to time for locations that are becoming Hope Church. And so, it's something just like your core values or your mission as a church, you want to keep that in front of.
Yeah.
And even though we're pastors, we can let that kind of drift. So we discuss like our DNA as a church, what we own, as a church, things like, part of our DNA is Jesus is to be the center focus of the church. He's the only celebrity. It's not built on the pastor's personality. And that's just a good check for us because we can allow our egos to get in the way, that type thing. But we're also for 3 or 4 days together. And so we have a good time. Like I said, I think I shared before, like last time, one night we're sharing kind of some of our struggles and stuff like that. The next day it becomes like 1,000 memes. And so we had one time, there were some guys that's been dealing with some pretty heavy stuff. And on the last night, we were going to go see the Forge movie, and that didn't work out schedule-wise. So we just went and hung out at the fire pit and was just kind of hanging out talking. And it literally became just 2 hours of comedy. like organic, not planned. One of the guys was sharing a story about his family being up from West Virginia and how I guess there's some kind of inbreeding, incest kind of stuff happening up there. Maybe they don't have too many other options. So they're talking about not having kneecaps and how he's got these flat nails and stuff. And so, just things that just turned into comedy. Like he was telling us that seriously. And then it became more of a roast session.
Bro, you shouldn't have said that. Now, you're going to like tear you apart.
Well, and so one of the pastors, I won't say who, it kind of got quiet. And then he goes, I have a cousin that's hot. And the thing that kind of started the whole week off was one of our guys broke down coming to the retreat. We were meeting for dinner Sunday night before everything kind of kicked off. And so he sends out a message to everyone, hey guys, I was making good time. I broke down. And I don't know if he spoke on the phone to one of the guys, but he was only 8 miles from him. And it was like, sorry, I'm 8 miles. I don't know how the conversation went, but essentially he made it known he couldn't go back to help him. Everybody else is like 30 minutes or 30 miles away. And so we started making memes in our group like, I would do anything for love, but I won't do that. And I put like an 8 mile, road sign. So it's just stuff like that. You know how guys are when they get together and just, when you can, not everybody can deal with that. And, you kind of get a sense of who's game and who's not. And for the most part, everybody that was there is good, get away with it.
Around, yeah.
And so it was a good time. It was a good time of just laughing. The Bible says laughter is a good medicine, and it really is. And so we just had a good time, good food. When guys get together, we eat good. And so I'll tell you, Brian, who founded the first Hope Church, he actually just started a podcast as well. I'll put a little plug there.
Yeah.
Guys who, maybe if you're a follower of Jesus, we got a lot of Christians who listen to this. Brian started a new podcast with one of our other Hope Church pastors, Jason Riddle, and another guy I've never met. His name is Josh Combs, called Text and Context. And basically it's putting the text of Scripture back in its proper context. We've heard a lot of things preached out of context, and they help put it back into context. So great podcast, just started.
Do they just take like a certain passage?
Yeah, so their first one, they took the train up a child and the way you should go and kind of discussed it, how it's not a promise. It is a principle. It's wisdom, but there's no guarantee.
That's right.
But a lot of pastors have used that to almost beat down parents over the years when, you must have failed.
That's
and
right.
It's like, no, you can do everything right, and your child still makes a decision. So things like that. And so they one episode in, but they're going to do that monthly. And so anyway, Brian is a phenomenal cook. Like, he loves to cook.
He's funny too, man. Yeah, when y'all were together, it was so funny. I just sat back and watched, trying to take it in and looking at like what could I, because I don't really know him. But if I get going and really know him, I just start roasting him. But I wasn't gonna say anything because I'm just like looking at y'all, going, okay, trying to see. I guess he just seems like a really good guy.
Yeah, doesn't take things too serious, but there's times we are serious.
Yeah,
there's times that is necessary. But anyway, so he did a lot of the cooking and just good food throughout the week. Good time to hang out with the guys. And there are things as guys when you get together you can get away with. But for pastors, we live in a glass house. You're always doing ministry, always on guard. And it's good just to get together and not worry about what people are going to think, what they're going to say. You can just be real guys. And so it was a good time away. Sweet. And good to refocus on our mission and keep that in the focus of what we need to be aiming for.
Brian on the behind and said, "What's up, ladybug? What's up, girl?" And then like as he's cooking the food, just mess with him.
Yeah,
I like to see my lady in the kitchen. I'll be messing him up.
He cooked some good ribs. He cooked some steaks. He brought his smoker, and so
there you go.
So took good care of us. So we had a good time.
What do we got today?
Well, some of what we were talking about was, especially as guys, and even yesterday on our Zoom call, because we as pastors meet once a week as pastors and kind of talk about different things, and we've been trying to make that a little more, intentional, not just getting together, but hey, what can we use this to benefit? And so and this is why I mentioned to you, I'd love to have even Brian come on, not only in talking about men issues, but also, within the home. I mean, he's got 30 some odd years of pastoring experience. He's a husband, father to 3 daughters, now father-in-law. I think his one of his daughters just got engaged, so he's about to have 2 son-in-laws. Just full of wisdom. I think it would be good.
Yeah.
But some of what we were talking about was being leaders in our homes, as pastors being leaders, and that priority. Yesterday on our Zoom call, we were talking about how God has called the man, to lead. And as pastors, Brian was actually giving a talk, and he was saying in Genesis, if you'll look, God addresses Adam different than he does Eve. There's a much greater responsibility on the shoulders of Adam.
Yeah.
And so he was talking to us as pastors, we are the ones that have the calling to be a pastor. We are called to be pastors, not our wives.
Yeah.
And while we may include them in the ministry, like our calling is not their calling. That, one of the things he was encouraging is let your wife have an identity outside of your calling and what you do.
So is Nikki the first lady?
She's not, and she hates that. Although I'm going to get her a sign for the first lady for special parking. But that's part of the ecosystem of the church in some ways. It's like, oh, this is the first lady. And while, look, she deals with a lot. There's a lot of sacrifice our wives deal with.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
There is a role in us protecting our wives from some of the negativity of the church. So there's an aspect there, but also almost that co-pastor kind of mentality as well. And I know some people do that. We're not here to discuss that, but there's a responsibility put on the man when leading.
Yeah.
And we could be putting a weight on our wives that God didn't design them for, but he did design us for. And so I kind of tossed that out to you because I know a lot of men struggle with being that leader in their home.
Oh, yeah.
Or they're passive when it comes to leading their wives. They're passive in leading their children. And I think it's a big issue.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's something
it's top. It's probably top, I would say definitely top 4, just off the top of my head, probably the issues that we face. It's probably one of the things that prohibit us from, taking ground and being all that we can be in the community and, for society as a whole, obviously for God, is that the husband is not leading the home. So
what are some ways you've seen that as we kind of dive into this?
Yeah, so I've seen it. Standpoint, if you look at military confines, guys are deployed, they come back home, they try to get readjusted. I've seen that to where the wife has been carrying the load. They come home, you kind of want to ease back into the normalcy. I think easing back in, and then you see them never come back in. I've seen guys who work. Not military, just they work in a factory 9 to 5 or at a plant, and so they work. They do their shifts. They come home. The wife leads the house, takes care of the kids, and then I even seen the wife works her job, husband works his job, except for his is manual labor, and he probably puts in about 55 hours, 60 hours a week, and she does her 40, and then they have kids, and then he comes back and he is just done with life. And so he'll take the babies, the kids, to go do something fun with his baseball or something that he enjoys. It's therapeutic for him. He enjoys. Other than that, he don't want to even run his household. None of that. But then their kids are all falling apart. The marriage, they're meeting with me, and within minutes, you can look at. And now this has been 2 decades worth of work, but I'm really specifically talking about probably the last 5 or 6 years. Probably. We'll just go back to the last 5, right before COVID. And so, like, they sit down with me, and then we just sit there and talk, and you go, oh, man, it's just because he's not leading his home. He's just not. She's leading the home. And I've also seen it where the guys do have this moment where they're kind of like recalibrated. Something's gripped their heart, sermon, even a movie has gripped their heart, something God has used, and then they want to be the leader. They just don't know how to begin.
Yeah.
And I watched one guy even saying that was when you sent me the text, I was like, about us talking about today. I immediately went to one guy a few years back who really wanted to. And what he did was he didn't do anything about it. He kind of like had like a passive conversation with his wife, wasn't really direct. He didn't just sit down and have a grown person conversation. He kind of like passively did it. And he just didn't do it, but he knew that he should have. And he sat on it for too long. And then what happened was, you know, when that happens, I mean, the wife, there's this little friction that he has. And so he's kind of bucking towards the wife because she's the head of the home.
Yeah.
At this point, he's bucking. Their marriage is like real tight. The kids are all like squirrely kids. They're like fed up with life, causing disruption. There is no discipline. There's no order. It's just chaos. And then the guy, they end up getting a divorce because of the kids. But really, when the root of it, if you dug it back, like in my house plumbing, you dig it all up and you look at it. The husband wasn't, and you talk to him now, and like he's doing great with the Lord. But man, he's actually reaping what he sowed.
Yeah.
By paying child support. And he's like, man, I can pinpoint back to where I knew and I didn't do anything. And didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, just like anything, I mean, you can use metaphor again with my pipes. You just let it leak, and sooner or later it's going to burst the whole house down.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what was going down with him. So, I mean, that's what I've seen it. But I've seen it like on a small scale with kids running crazy. And there's no order, and the dad's begging the kids to calm down. I mean, like, you are the dad.
Right.
Like, you're begging your kids to, like, not run around and be crazy and destroy property. You're begging them? I would just go, oh, gosh.
I had a guy in this church several years ago who his two sons were running around acting crazy. People are trying to work, and their grandfather called them down. Some other men called them down, and they wouldn't listen. And their grandfather finally said to his son, the dad of the boys, you know, hey, you need to tell them to quit running around and to behave. And he looked up from what he was doing and kind of shot back at his dad and was like, what do you expect me to do about it? And he was like, be their dad. You know, and it's just like, that's your responsibility. Other men are trying to tell them to stop running and to settle down. Their grandfather is trying to tell them to settle down. And you're over here being passive and dismissive and not stepping in the role. That may be why they're not responding to other men. But for the dad to go, what do you expect me to do? It's like, be their dad. You know, with that comes discipline. And just to be completely oblivious to what they're doing and, you know, dismissive of your responsibility. I think, I just wonder how many other people that's their mentality within their own homes that we don't even see. It's like, what am I supposed to do about it?
Yep, dude. I see it, man. I see it. And I see it by somebody who works with young people. I see it all the time when it's their kids. I've seen the husband and wife just not on the same page. He's not leading. And I tell husbands, I feel like all the time, when I say all the time, I'm saying probably once a week I have a conversation, once every 7 days, at least once every 7 days. I feel like I have them on Sundays, Wednesdays, and then get a random call during the week. But at least once a week, one person talk to me about some issue they have with their wife. And if you're listening, you listen to the podcast and then you have a relationship with me and you know this to be true. I say the same thing, and I'm always like, there will be a time when you have this conversation with your wife. You're going to sit down and you know this is what God wants for your family, for you. You know without a doubt. You have it. You feel it in your spirit. You know it through God's word. This is the right thing, and this is the best way to glorify God. And your wife doesn't like it. You're not going to sit there and wait for her to jump on the bandwagon.
Nope.
You make a decision, and you got to, when you make a decision, know there's going to be some collateral damage from it. She may not like you, okay? But I promise you, in time, if this is what God wants, it's going to turn out beautiful. It's going to glorify God. And then at the same time, it will build equity with your wife. You do this enough, she's going to start getting on the train because she has seen you being faithfully, loving her and serving her, as well as you do the kids. And she's going to see that you're doing what God's called you to do.
Yeah.
The thing that you have to remain like kind of tight on is that you're pursuing God, and you're like your main goal is to glorify Him. It's not chasing comfort. Like you are to glorify Him, and like that is the posture of your heart. That's like really the only thing you can do in this life that's not in vain. Yeah. Everything else can be mass, but to glorify God is because God knows and you know, and so but He truly knows, and so I think that's the key. But what happens is men, they stop right before then, and then they don't build the equity. And it's like, man, she may not like you. You may not get say lucky. You may be just be you in the covers by yourself. Curled up, and she may not give you no smoochy smooch. And so,
but don't you think that is?
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, don't you think that is why some men? I mean, that's some of what we were talking about even yesterday as pastors. Isn't that one of the fears of men and why they don't take lead? Because if they don't yield to, their wife or feel like letting her kind of take control or do what she wants, that, things in the bedroom are going to be cold. Yep. And, so in order to protect your own sex life, you advocate your responsibilities.
You're a child.
So that you can get what you want.
Yep. You're a child. You do that, you're a child. I had one conversation with a man years ago. I mean, this is probably 2014, maybe 15, almost 10 years ago. I remember having the same what you just said. It pulled me right back to a McDonald's, having a conversation with a gentleman about that very thing. And I said, just be a man, bro. You're being a child. Just be a man. That's pretty pathetic. You cannot, it's not ideal to go without that. But dude, be a man. Be disciplined, But this person, in saying that, and I'm just going to say it, and then you can give me a hard time about it, or somebody could roast me about it. This is just my belief. If you can't, like, get a wrap on, like, your diet or, like, physical health or any of the other stuff, there's no way you're going to, like, from the sexual side, that's going to be, like, hard, right? So it's like, in this gentleman,
what's going to be hard?
It's gonna be hard to withstand for 2 weeks. That was gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard all the time. That's what I'm trying to say. You're gonna wake up and it's gonna be that way. As a matter of fact, I saw a meme the other day, not to get sidetracked, but it was like you could tell he died in the morning, and it was like it was so funny. But I was like, that's a true statement. But but the fact of is like, I'm like, man, he's not even a disciplined man in the first place. He's scared to death. Because he's not even disciplined. It's like, bro, you got to get a grip on like hunger and get grip on like your diet and these cravings and all that. Like you should just be a man, bro. But in saying that, I do want to say that I say that with as much grace as I possibly can, because I know I've said it to myself.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times over all the years. And so I am not perfect in that. And Shane has a lot of conversations with Shane. And sometimes I say a lot of ugly words to myself to get myself like motivated up that I don't say to nobody else but myself. And so because I need to toughen up.
Yeah.
So
I think
what do you think?
I think some of the problem, one is we have I think there's a few factors that play into it. One is, look at our homes. We got a lot of absentee fathers. So men aren't being taught to be men. Whether that be a man in the home and not being present and, doing what he can to lead his family. And so that's got a generational kind of outcome to that, because now how do I know we talk about it all the time, like you're not taught in school how to be married.
Yep.
No one teaches you to be married. The only marriage wisdom that you get is what you see from your parents or from other people. So sometimes you have to learn on your own. Of course, thankfully we, as Christians, have the Bible to look to, but even that can be twisted and presented incorrectly,
out of context.
Yeah, so you got men who aren't in the home, the men who have left, and we are in a society where men are really encouraged to do that, and women are encouraged to have children and let the government,
Oh yeah,
raise them because
100%.
we pay them for as many children as they have. So now, what is the incentive to even have a man in the home? So anyway, that's one kind of structural issue, and then you also have the society that teaches strong manhood is toxic. And Gavin and I were having this conversation actually the other day with Nikki, not that she was like in full disagreement, but we were talking about some different things, and we're like, there is no toxic masculinity. There's no toxic manhood. There is toxicity, and then there's manhood. There are men who are toxic. There are women who are toxic, but being a man, the whole definition of being a man, the whole idea of manhood, there is no toxicity in there. But what society wants you to believe,
it's like an assault rifle.
Yeah, right. It's a rifle. It looks scary. Every weapon is an assault weapon. A knife is an assault weapon.
That's an assault knife. I got an assault pencil if I was John Wick.
Right. And it's like, we term things, but we give that away. I mean, that's part of our problem in society of, we let people get away with love is love. Well, love isn't love. I mean,
100%.
Even in language, there's in the Bible, there's 3 different kinds of, love. I don't erotica a hamburger.
That's right.
Love is not love, but we let people get away and hijack those terms. And so, for me, I think that we as a society have allowed culture to determine for men, and they don't want to be labeled that because there's negative consequences for that, whether it be socially or whether it be sexually or whether it be career or whatever. And so now I'm gonna pull back from being the man that I'm designed to be, so that I'm not appear to be toxic. And what has happened, I've seen it even with some of my own children at times, where they will hear certain terms being used out in the world, and then they try to use it on us because it's the buzzword. And it's like, first of all, you don't understand that word. Second of all, the way that you think it's being used is not being used at all. And so I think in a way, people, they are hearing that and they're like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to become that or be labeled that. And I think even within the church, what I saw was some toxicity where you're taught, you're the head of the home. You are.
Yeah.
But that was presented in some, not from my dad, from the environments that we were in, that is more of a dominating force. It's like when we first got married, I was into, very influenced by legalism. I was in an environment where it was KJV only.
1611.
Try to read it. And Nikki, we get married. She moves into the house and she brings with her this NIV study Bible.
Let's go.
Now, I'm not a huge NIV guy, not because I believe it's not an inspired version. I've just never gotten into it. I like other translations better.
You don't care about international people.
I don't like international people.
You got held up in Costa Rica, and now international is like,
get rid of those new international people.
We need the old international, bro.
New immigrant version.
That's
and
right.
So
as long as it's not illegal.
But my posture was, as the head of the home, you got to get that out of our house.
Yeah.
That's not allowed here. And so that was more of that domineering. Now, if it were something genuinely like wrong, yes, that's but you can also do that in a certain way that's not like, domineering and things like that. And so I think there are some Christians who turn men into being more of a toxic mindset, utilizing scriptures like the woman's the weaker vessel. Well, it doesn't mean that she's any less valuable and she's your property and that she's to be trampled on. That's not what that scripture means. But I think there's a fear that if I show strong leadership and I lead my family and I lead my wife, that's what's going to be portrayed. Well, I can take a dumbbell that costs $25 at Walmart, 10-pound dumbbell, and I can take a fine china plate that costs $1,000. And while that's a weaker vessel than the dumbbell, it doesn't mean that it has any less value or
that's
worth.
a good analogy. Let's go.
And so that weight can break that plate, but it doesn't mean that it's got less value. I can do far more with the value of that plate than I can that dumbbell. So just because strength, because you may be stronger or because the Bible says she's a weaker vessel, doesn't mean that she's, our doormat to walk on.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a fear. I think there's a fear of not knowing what to do, having the intention, but not. I think it was Andy Stanley. I've heard other people, so I don't know where it originated.
There you go.
But
But Andy.
I think it's like, it's not intention, but it's decision that leads to destination or something like that.
Sounds right.
Basically, it's not the intention that you have that gets you to your destination. It's the decisions that you make. And so I think for guys, that they have that intention, but they're like, what do I do with this? How do I start? It's just you start.
Yeah.
You surround yourself with other men. You ask questions. You are vulnerable to go, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. But then if I come to Shane and go, hey, I want to lead my home, but I just don't know where to start. I didn't see it modeled, or I saw the toxic side of things, and I don't want to be that. What do I need to do? And you tell me, well, start here or do these certain things. If I don't do that, then I'm never going to get to that destination. And as you said in that one case, it ended,
it went sour. I remember I didn't really have a role model in that case for me. Like somebody that like pursued God like that. But my father-in-law, when he came in my picture of in my life when I was dating my wife, we were just dating. He was huge, obviously, and there were things that I picked up that I didn't really agree with that he was doing, just from thinking practically. And I remember being at my first full-time church I was on staff at. I remember a guy who I noticed he would brag, first off, that how he's never changed a diaper in his life, ever. He would brag about that. Brag about like, I got to come home, man. She got to have a hot meal for me. Real like that. Like what you're saying, very dominating. And I remember I was about to get married and he took me to lunch. So basically, it was the time I got free lunch because he just gave me every bit of his wisdom unsolicited. Like he took me to lunch and like just wanted to take me to lunch to let me know this is how you be a man. They knew I didn't really have examples on.
Yeah.
And I remember him telling me stuff, and it was just like making sure, like what you were saying, he was like twisting things in the Bible to say, she used to support me and take care of me, and whatever we agree upon her job, know that like it's still her job to make sure she comes home. When she comes home is to provide a meal, because one day she'll be a mom and she'll have to do that. And so that was like his reasoning behind it. And I remember thinking, listen, it wasn't even a great meal too, bro. It wasn't a good conversation. Went to McDonald's, and so got me
Was that
2
in
double
Louisville?
cheeseburgers. It was in Louisville.
That's about all y'all had in Louisville.
Dude, we did have a Chinese restaurant.
Didn't you have a Huddle House too?
We did have a Huddle House and a Dairy Queen. That was
Wasn't there like a hotel or something that had like a
breakfast?
buffet
They had that.
or
Yeah.
something?
Yeah, I didn't eat there that much, but Huddle House for sure.
Yeah.
So we did have a Popeyes too. The
Okay,
greatest
yeah,
chicken
there you
joint.
go.
One day we'll be sponsored by Popeyes.
Let's go,
We've
Popeyes.
arrived. Yeah, man. So I've seen it, man. Go south.
Well, and I mean, here's what men need to know. If you don't, we are designed by God to be the leaders of our homes, to lead our families, to lead our children, which means that's hardwired in both of us.
Yeah.
Now we know, and this is something, that Brian had talked about, and love to have him maybe come on and elaborate some more with that. But in Genesis, when Eve and Adam fell and sinned against God, part of the curse for the woman was that it would be wired into her within her sinful nature to try to control her husband and to try to basically take on his position. And so that's going to be a natural part of the sin nature. But yet God also designed us as men to lead our homes. And so I do think there will be a part within women who resent men who do not lead, because that is our role and that's our responsibility.
Yeah.
And so therefore, if you're not doing that, we know by looking at single moms are going to stand in the gap and they're going to step up and they're going to do what they need to do to lead their children and to lead the home. So if the men are absent, the women are going to absolutely do what they feel is best. So now if you do try to step in that, she's going to be resenting you. It's going to have all kinds of effects in every area of your marriage. But also, when you do try to step into that role, it's probably going to take some time for her to gain your respect and for her to let go of those reins because you let them go before.
Yeah.
So she's got to now learn, can I trust you to actually lead and to have the discipline to keep leading even when it gets tough? And so, was hearing from a guy the other day that said, like, it took a while because he was being more passive in his leadership and as a husband. But when he did make that determination, I think he just kind of got tired of not doing what he was supposed to do and the outcome of that. When he did decide, it did take some time. And so it's not a quick fix, but we make our own bed. We cause our own problems. So we have to understand we got to do the hard work of persevering when we've not done what we need to do.
Yep.
And I think it's just like a dad stepping back into his children's life who's kind of been passive. It's going to take some time for those kids to go, okay, I'm going to open myself up to dad. I'm going to listen. I'm going to receive what he has to say to me. I think it's going to take time. So if guys are in that position to where they're like, hey, I've not been leading, I need to, then no, you might have to go through a little bit of difficult season, but it's going, like you said, it's going to be good on the other side because that is how God designed things. So if you're doing what God designed you to do, I think your wife, especially if she's a follower of Christ, she's going to respond to that because she's also been created to follow your lead. And so I think that'll become a beautiful
I agree,
thing.
100%, man. And don't cop out either. Don't say like, well, she's not going to do it. Don't do it. Just, you don't know until you try it. And then don't try it for like 3 days and then think it's all supposed to be fine. Just put your head down, control what you can control. You can control your actions, and then it builds up equity. It will build up equity. Just trust it, and it turns out way better. It's going to be, point blank period. I mean, it's going to be way better after 6 months than it was the previous 6 months. Now, is it going to be perfect? Probably not, or it may be. I don't know, but if you're already in a bad shape, what can you? I mean, what are you going to lose?
Right.
Just do it, and then I promise you, you're gonna be in better shape than you were before. Don't you want to be better? 25% better is better than nothing.
Absolutely.
$25 in your wallet better than being broke.
Well, the problem is also, but we want things to be microwaved
because that's our society as a whole,
and so we want us to do it for a week and go, oh well, she's not doing things differently, and it's. I tell people all the time as a pastor, I mean, that's the reason people don't obey Scripture, because we think we know better than God. And we think, well, that's going to not lead to my pleasure or my comfort or whatever. So I'm going to do what I think is going to lead to success and to my pleasure versus what God says. And then when it all falls apart, we want to blame God or whatever. And it's like, if you would just do what God designed you to do and what he has told you to do and just trust that and then give it time. Now, you can't control your wife. I can't change Nikki's heart. I can't control what she does. Then it becomes on her.
That's her deal.
I love what the Scripture says, even when it comes to relationships, make every effort to live at peace with one another. So what it's saying is it's your responsibility, Nick, to make every effort. And then she has to answer to God to make every effort on her part. And so I think that is every aspect of our relationship. It's my responsibility to make every effort. And then I can't control her. It's up to her to make every effort to be the wife that God's called her to be, designed her to be, expects her to be. If she doesn't, that's between her and God. I'm still going to lead, and I'm still going to, and that what that looks like is things like in our home. Does that mean she doesn't have a voice? She absolutely has a voice. I value her opinion, and there's times that I think her opinion is right, and it's like, okay, this is what we'll do. There's small things that don't matter. I don't have to make every decision. So, we've all go, hey, what do you want for dinner? Where do you want to, if we're going to get something, where do you want to go? Those are small things. But what leadership looks like, it's in the hard things to where you and her might not agree. But you have this inner just understanding or just feeling that you know the right direction for the home and for the family, what is right. And leadership is when you and she doesn't agree. Yes, you value her opinion. You take it into consideration. But at the end of the day, it is your responsibility as the man, as the husband, as the father to make that decision.
Yep.
Come hell or come high water, no matter what the outcome is, that is your responsibility. And you cannot, abdicate that, and you can't pass it off to her and put that weight on her shoulders. It is up to you to make that decision. Sure, you may feel like her direction is right. It's still your call to make.
Yep.
That's part of leadership.
Dude, my first thought, I think I've shared it before, maybe last year. I remember when my boys were younger, and this was in the summer, so it was hot. And when I do my yard, I do my other neighbor's yard and all the yards together. And my boys, it's about their time to help me. They're at their age to help me. And so they're going to help me. And my wife was wanting us to go ahead and go do something. She had it in her mind, but I had it in my mind because it was my day off. Like, we're going to get some stuff done. But she had just wished that we could go do something else. Now, she's not homeschooling. She's not doing anything else. There's not like a lot of stuff that you have to do that's on the agenda. She just had it in her mind. And I just said, no, this is what we're going to do. She said, well, can you just cut like half the yard? Da, da, da. And I was like, and she goes, why does the boys have to help you? And this is years ago. They were younger. And I remember her getting very upset with me because I said, babe, this is what we're going to do. Because you won't even consult me. And it was like probably that time of month as well, not to give blame to that, but she just had it in her mind set to go do something. And this is not a big situation either. But in the moment, when like she's verbally and visibly upset with me for about 2 days. Like literally, there was tension, lots of tension there. And so I just said, no, this is what we're going to do. And so my boys, and they're going to help. Why do they have to come? One has allergies. I said, because they need to. So we did it all, did the yard. It took, half of a day. And then it derailed plans. I think the next day it rained or something like that. And she was upset. We got to talking about it. I said, hey, what's up? Like, what's happening? And she was upset that I didn't listen to her and I wasn't going to listen to her. And I said, well, I listened to you, but I wasn't going to do. Well, and I said, just because we disagree doesn't mean like I have my opinion, you have yours. We're just talking it all out. And I said, well, babe, what you want to do, is that very biblical, or is it me caring for people who I have? That is my responsibility. This is what we're called to do. And the boys do it with me. This is the first few go-rounds that they do it with me. You didn't have the problem the first go-round, but now you've been thinking about it, not saying anything to me, and it really stems to like you don't think that's a good idea, and it crimped your style because you really want to go do something. And I said, this is biblical. Us caring for people who can't go out and do their yard saves them money. This is biblical. I get to do it with my sons and teach them as men. This looks right, and this is what the pageants are. And then I went on this whole spiel, and I said, I am not upset with you, but I'm letting you know this is what we're going to do regardless. And I probably said something. This is where our brains don't work sometimes, because that's when I popped in and I said, I think you need to go read your Bible. So, that's like when you don't say something,
Yeah.
I kind of got in my preaching mode, you know how you're just like, this was like a sermon before, and so you get into this little thing. And I said something like that. And anyway, she was upset with me. I apologized for it later on. And then fast forward. It ain't like that at all now.
Right.
She's like sending the boys over. You go do this here. Or we got to help this person. She's all in. But she was never steered that way growing up. She had a great, godly home.
Yeah.
They just stayed in their bubble. Kind of you stay in your little greenhouse, and then you help everybody that's inside the greenhouse. Outside the greenhouse, it just was not thought of, oh, you go help your neighbor.
Yeah.
It was never a thing. And, me being more, evangelizing type of mindset, it was like, this is what we're going to do, bro. There's no exception. This is in my DNA. This is who we are. So that's just a moment there. I just remember that it was a 2-day process. I was thinking in my head too. This is caused a blow up. Probably not going to get lucky. Already been a few days already. This is all going to be stuff. But nah, man, this is what we're going to do. And it wasn't ugly at all. I was really confused by her demeanor towards me, but she had her own agenda.
Yeah.
And it got in her way,
Well, and that's the thing. Like, you've got two individuals who have two different thoughts of things, and that is why marriage is such a hard thing.
True.
because I've got my idea, she's got her idea, or vice versa. And if we're going like this, we're going in opposite directions. And when that kind of comes to a head, that's where the conflict comes in, because it's like, nope, this is what I think. This is what I think. So who gets to make that determination?
Yep.
Well, that's the husband's responsibility, no matter what the outcome is. But what a lot of guys try to do is avoid that conflict.
Yeah,
I love what Rick
sure.
Warren said many years ago. He said, conflict is the pathway to intimacy. You have to go through conflict to learn one another, to know one another. But on the opposite side, now what you have shared, you shared a win and a good thing. That's very hard. You shared where you screwed up and was like, go read your Bible.
That's all right.
So there's a lesson to do, a lesson not to do. But then you're also expressing on the opposite side where guys feel like they won't get to if they have to go through the conflict. They want to avoid. They want this over here, where she now is on board.
Yeah, now she wants to rent me out to everybody. Now
right. So
she loans me out.
Yeah.
And so now it's like,
I got a husband and 2 sons.
Dude, it's like that now. And you're like, yeah. So you know what I do though? I just it warms my heart really. But some days you just get home and you're tired and you're like, okay, that's what we need to do. She's right.
Yeah.
100%. All right,
but everybody wants that, but they want to avoid that conflict.
Yeah.
And they think the way to avoid that conflict is to just yield and give away their leadership, thinking it's going to get them there, but it never does. Because the other side of it is it's a false peace for us, because we think we're keeping the peace, but inside we are miserable because we're not leading like we're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
Like we know what we're supposed to be doing, but we're miserable because we keep yielding, and we're being controlled, and we're just going with the flow. And that's a big thing Nikki and I've had conversations with. Like, I simply want communication. I want, before plans are made, I have no problem her keeping the calendar, but I also don't want our schedule dictated to where it's like, oh, we got this, and this. I at least want to have, let's talk about it. Let's discuss these things, because that in a way sets the agenda for the home. And that is part of the leadership as well. Now, those things need to be discussed and things like that. But it doesn't mean we're just going to say yes to everything. And that's where we balance each other out, because Nikki will tell everybody yes, because the way she's wired is to serve people.
Yeah.
And that communicates love to them. Me, I have no problem saying no. Like, you can invite me to something, and if Georgia's on, then I get them during the football season.
Yep.
Do not invite me to your 3-year-old's 3-year-old's birthday party during a Georgia game. I'm not coming. I'm not 3 years old. I don't hang out with your 3-year-old, but I only get Georgia football for a matter of a few months. And so I have no problem telling people no. It's just, if it's not something that I feel is important to me or to our family, I have no problem saying no. I've got enough stuff going on.
Man,
I don't have to give in to everybody's request and everybody's demand. So without that, we would be saying yes to everybody, because she feels like it communicates disrespect, or we don't love them, or whatever. And I don't see it that way. And so for our home, what are we going to communicate? And so that's where we help balance each other out. Sometimes she makes a good case of, this is why we need to go and be a part of this. Okay. I listen to that, but it's not always the case, because there's always something to say yes to.
Yeah, my wife the other day, she did the same thing, and I went, "Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. I think that's what we should do." She was planning on doing something at the birthday party, and I was like, "That's exactly what we're going to do." And then the house flooded, and to be honest, I stay out of some of that, like the hotel, what hotel she wants to stay in, and all. I just like, here's kind of what I think the budget should be. You pick that, but.
Economy Inn, Wrightsboro Road.
I know. Red
Way,
Roof.
$19.99.
Red Roof Inn.
We stayed at a Red Roof when we went to Orlando for a conference. Yeah.
It was Catalyst conference.
Catalyst one day.
Yeah, one day.
Yep.
That actually was pretty good. I wish they did those. Probably couldn't do it with the guys that are leading it, but
one of the things I like best about that, because it was more raw.
Oh yeah.
Andy Stanley and Craig Rochelle was there, and remember when they disagreed about going to seminary? And Craig's like, I don't think it's necessary. And Andy was like, I think it's necessary. And I loved it.
That was more beneficial than the big conference for like 2 days.
Yep.
because they're sitting there and then they just talk to you and talk with you, and you feel like they're not talking just at you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
So,
it's not a planned speech. It's kind of
Yeah.
like here we're discussing an issue. I don't know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
And so, but it was funny to see them. They're really good friends,
Uh-huh.
really great leaders, but of big organizations and churches, but they disagreed about the importance of seminary. Both of us landed on the side of Craig.
That's right.
Because we don't have seminary.
That's right.
And so we were like, yeah,
That's
Craig's
right.
right.
Yeah, Craig was right.
Which
that
I
day.
think he's more right on some things anyway.
Yeah, you start looking at it now and like, yep. We run out of time. We done with our time, or what are we doing?
I mean, I think we've exhausted
The men?
this topic
Oh,
unless you
yeah.
had something else to add. Maybe producer Corell has something he wants to throw out there. He's not married, so we're preparing him though. He's taking notes. We for the young guys though, this is something if you're not married, but you got plans, maybe you're dating, maybe you're engaged, go ahead and take note.
Yeah.
Go ahead and start off on the right foot of leading your home well so that you're not on that side of having to revive things. And,
That's right.
Okay, now I'm going to step in. Go ahead and
Yep. Getting gear, lock and loaded. You put the bullet in the gun, go ahead and pull the trigger.
find you an older man who has a successful marriage. Ask if you can, get with him and learn from him. If you're engaged, find that couple that has 30,
100%.
40 years down the road and say, hey, could we come over for dinner once every 2 weeks or something and just learn from you? You can pour into us.
Yep.
Look for those mentors. Look for those people that can pour into your life, invest in you, give you the hard stories of success and failure, and that you can learn from.
Yep.
And, we all need that because a lot of us don't have it or didn't have it.
100%. Get with somebody. Don't do it alone. You need people for sure.
Well, we appreciate you all tuning in as you do each episode. As we share with every episode, it is very important to us that we continue to get these episodes out to as many people as that we can.
Yeah.
We love hearing from people who we are having an impact in their life, and so if you would help us take a moment after this episode and share it with others on your social media or through text message. Maybe you got that friend who, a best friend or that guy friend that y'all are always kind of hanging out and talking about stuff. Send it to them if they haven't listened to it. On Apple, you can leave a written review as well as a 5-star review or whatever star you want to give us. I think on Spotify, you can just leave like a 5-star review. I'm not sure all of the platforms, but we would love it if you would review it, share it, get the word out, and help us grow this audience of Cartel and the Male Cartel. And we, as always, appreciate you tuning in and listening and being a part of this conversation.
Yep. Like we always say, get 1% better. See you next time.
See ya.
Thank you for joining the Male Cartel podcast. Be sure to subscribe and share to help other men join the cartel. You can also keep up with us on social media and at malecartel.com.